The debate, the honourable member for Thornhill.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I must say I am delighted today to speak in support of Economic Action Plan 2014. I must say at the outset that I will be splitting my time, Mr. Speaker, with the member for Kitchener-Conestoga. Mr. Speaker, yesterday I was honoured to sit in this House as the Minister of Finance tabled his 10th budget. This budget confirms our government is on track to have a balanced budget by 2015 while creating more jobs for Canadians, and I'm proud to highlight some of the key elements of the budget. Our government, Mr. Speaker, is clearly on track to balance the budget while keeping taxes low and protecting the programs and services that Canadians count on. As the opening words in the budget document, The Road to Balance, Creating Jobs and Opportunities says, Canada's Economic Action Plan is working. The deficit is expected to decline to $2.9 billion in 2014-15, followed by a surplus of $6.4 billion in 2015-16, after taking into account $3 billion in annual adjustment for risk. Now, since our government implemented Canada's Economic Action Plan during the global recession, Canada has achieved the best job creation record of any group of seven, the G7 countries, the strongest income growth, and as well, Mr. Speaker, one of the best economic performances in the G7. The Canadian economy has continued to create jobs, with over 1 million more Canadians working today than during the worst of the recession. Canadian families in all income groups have seen increases of about 10% or more in their real after-tax, after-transfer income since 2006. Canadians at all income levels, Mr. Speaker, are benefiting from tax relief introduced by our government, with low and middle-income Canadians receiving proportionately greater relief. An average Canadian family of four now pays approximately $3,400 less in taxes than in 2006 due to the government's record of tax relief. And Canada is now one of only a handful of countries, Mr. Speaker, in the world that continues to earn a AAA credit rating with a stable outlook from all the major credit rating agencies. Economic Action Plan 2014 builds on this record of achievement with positive measures to grow the economy and to help create jobs. Now, Mr. Speaker, yesterday afternoon, after the Finance Minister tabled the budget, I was shocked by the first comment and characterization by the finance critic of the NDP, who said that there was absolutely nothing for young people or for jobs in this budget. So I'll just take a look at what exactly Economic Action Plan 2014 does with regard to jobs and growth. First of all, it will implement the Canada Job Grant and Job Matching Service to help Canadians with available jobs. It will introduce, and this is no small matter, Mr. Speaker, the new Canada Apprentice Loan to help registered apprentices in Red Seal trades with the costs of training. Our government will invest to reform the on-reserve education system in partnership with First Nations through the First Nations Control of First Nations Education Act, and an improvement of education, Mr. Speaker, on reserves and off will certainly improve and set up the graduates of secondary and post-secondary education programs, better suiting them for positions in a job market which is looking for appropriately trained graduates. Economic Action Plan 2014 will invest in programs to help older workers and persons with disabilities across the labour market. It will create thousands of new paid internships for young Canadians entering the job market. It will make a major investment of $500 million in automotive sector support and investments in Canada's forestry and mining sectors, and so much more. It will also provide $1.5 billion over the next decade for the Canada First Research Excellence Fund for post-secondary education. Now, to support families and to support communities, this budget, Mr. Speaker, will stand up for consumers by encouraging competition and lower prices in the telecommunications market and introducing legislation to prohibit cross-border price discrimination. Certainly front of mind for all Canadians living in proximity to our border. Economic Action Plan 2014 will eliminate the practice of pay-to-pay billing. It will increase the adoption expense tax credit to help make adoption more affordable for Canadian families. It will expand tax relief for health care by exempting acupuncturists and naturopathic doctors' professional services from GST and HST. It will also strengthen food safety for Canadian families, Mr. Speaker, with major new investments of $390 million. It will invest more than $300 million to bring faster broadband internet to rural and to northern Canada, and it will protect Canadians from the impact of natural disasters with $200 million to establish a natural disaster mitigation program. It will as well create a new search and rescue volunteer tax credit to recognize the important role played by search and rescue volunteers who put themselves at risk while contributing to the safety and security of Canadians. And as we've discussed already several times in the House, it will expand the funeral and burial program so that modern-day veterans have access to dignified funerals and burial. Now, if I could reflect for just a moment, Mr. Speaker, on the benefits of Economic Action Plan 2014 with regard to protection of our great natural places and spaces. It provides funding for the sustainability of Canada's national parks and the over the decades neglected infrastructure in and around these national parks. It doubles funding for the recreational Fisheries Conservation Partnership Program, a program which has enjoyed resounding success and effectiveness in the first year of its application from Budget 2013. And it provides a way for Canadians with ecologically sensitive land to protect natural areas for future generations, and it expands tax support for green energy generation. Now, with regard to balancing the budget, Mr. Speaker, unlike the Liberals who slashed health and social transfers to the provinces, Economic Action Plan 2014 will advance our government's commitment to control direct program spending with proposals to ensure that overall public service employee compensation is reasonable and at the same time is affordable. The government will work with Crown corporations to implement 50-50 employee pension plan cost sharing and to increase the retirement age for new hires. Now, Mr. Speaker, along with the Economic Action Plan 2014, our government issued a very important document yesterday, the Jobs Report, the state of the Canadian labour market, which examines recent developments in the labour market, and there are challenges again coming out of the recession. But this Jobs Report, I think, is an important document for all in this House and beyond to consider and digest, because there are very relevant charts, graphs, and information which will affect the way that our country continues on a steady course out of the economic downturn. It also outlines actions our government has taken to support Canadians in upgrading their skills and in the creation of high-quality jobs. So in closing, Mr. Speaker, I would invite my honourable colleagues right along the opposite side of the House to abandon partisan criticism, partisan politics, and to support Economic Action Plan 2014. Mr. Speaker, thank you.
Questions and comments? Question et commentaire. The honourable member for Parkdale High Park.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank my colleague from Toronto for his comments, and I want to ask him on behalf of the people we both represent in the city of Toronto, how can he stand in this place and talk about all the wonderful things that this budget is doing when some of the most crying needs in our city are clearly ignored by this government and by this budget? Specifically, I'm talking about infrastructure needs. Our city is grinding to a gridlock halt, and we're not seeing the federal government step up and play its full share investing in infrastructure spending. Not only do we need transit, but we need water, sewage, roads, bridges. The need is great. He just has to speak with the Board of Trade. And not to mention the fact that there's nothing for housing and that so many young people are being abandoned by this budget who can't get a toehold in the job market. How can he support this budget when he's abandoning his own city?
Member for Thornhill.
Well, I thank my honourable colleague, Mr. Speaker, for a question that partially addresses the reality of challenges facing Canada's metropolis, Toronto, the GTA, and other Canadian urban centres across the country. But I would disagree that our government has not, since 2006, but particularly in the depths of the global recession, when we invested mightily in infrastructure that needed to be addressed over a much longer term, but in the short term was addressed and continues to be addressed. And we have assurances from the Minister that as we, and others, and from the Prime Minister, that as we achieve our objective of eliminating the deficit next year and move back into surplus, that in fact we will be working with the municipalities, large and small, to address these infrastructure challenges. But I would just very briefly offer a couple of compliments really from, for example, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities said rural businesses, communities and residents need sufficient bandwidth to participate in the economy. The announcement is good news for Canadians. The Canadian Chamber of Commerce says the government has acted. The result will be a stronger economy with more jobs. The Canadian Council of Chief Executives said balancing the federal budget and maintaining discipline to pay down the debt are not only the right thing to do, they are essential for Canada's global competitiveness.
Questions and comments? Question et commentaires de l'honorable député de Lac-Saint-Louis.
The honourable member for Lac-Saint-Louis.
I would just like to draw the member's attention to two statistics. One is 1.9, which represents the percentage drop in productivity from 2006 to September 2013. The other one is the fact that we've had at least 24, as I understand it, 24 consecutive months of merchandise trade deficits. And I was wondering if the honourable member would not agree that this shows some kind of failure in the Conservatives' industrial policy or economic policies. And I'd like to know from the member what he believes these numbers tell us about where the future lies economically in Canada.
The honourable member for Thornhill, you have about a minute.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank my colleague for his question. Productivity is a challenge, and that's why previous budgets and this budget address the assistance to our manufacturing sector to invest in technology, in equipment that will increase productivity. A great deal of our foreign trade balance has less to do with the steadily recovering Canadian economy than the inability of some of our traditional markets to buy our goods and our products. But again, I would look to the Retail Council of Canada says, all in all, this is a very good budget for Canadian retailers. The Association of Community Colleges says this is an encouraging budget that helps support measures to address the gap in skills which will affect productivity, affecting so many sectors of our economy. It also recognizes the important role played by colleges and institutes in Canada's innovation system. Again, an investment that will speak to future improvements in Canadian productivity. Thank you.